We just
Okay, I'll make you it. Okay. You are it, Thomas.
let's check this out. All right, cool. I'm able to share. We'll wait for a little bit longer if you want to, or do you want to start now?
You are sharing your time with us, so we want to
Okay.
respect that. So we can go ahead and get started.
All right. Andrew Coleman, he's the attorney. He's one of the attorneys here. He's gonna pop in real quick. Well, he's gonna sit with us. He's really good at this as well. He's getting his laptop out, so I wanted to give him a little more time.
Okay.
In the meantime, I'll go ahead and explain what we're doing today. Hey guys, thanks for having us. I'm Thomas Ray with Shoaf Law Firm. We are out of Charlotte. We have an office in Raleigh. We cover all 100 counties in North Carolina. We do remote closings at no extra charge. But today we're going to talk about the good old fashioned mobile home, which has been a lot more popular these days since the first time home buyers having a harder time with the pricing of the houses. So we're seeing that there's a increase of these mobile home sales in the areas that are outside of Charlotte, which is the Salisbury, Rowan, Albemarle, Lincoln. I mean, you guys probably can see it too. But so the first question we have today is basically explaining what a mobile home is. Andrew Coleman is here with me. He's signing on right now. But typically, we'll see something that says mobile home, manufactured home, and then you have modular. And a lot of time, the confusion it sets in when you have manufactured and modular. If it says modular on the appraisal or anywhere, that is treated the same as a stick-built home, and you don't have to do anything. It's treated just like a regular house that was built from the ground up. And when you see manufactured or mobile, that's when we have to come in and look at if it really is considered a mobile home or manufactured home and other aspects that qualifies it in being in this category. Correct? Are you there?
Yes. All right, that's loading. Yeah, so that's correct. And then further defined, just the way the statute defines it, a manufactured home is a structure transportable that's when in traveling mode, at least 8 feet wide, or 40 feet long, or 320 or more square feet, and that is built on a permanent chassis.
So usually a modular home will come in on a truck bed in different parts and then structured on the site. And the manufactured home comes in on its own chassis, maybe one or two if it's double wide, and then it put together and erected on site. So in 2002, they came out with this document called the Declaration of Intent. So if a mobile home, if you find that filed in the courthouse beyond 2002, we're in good shape. That means we don't have to do any detitling. We can continue with the process like it's a stick-built home. So anytime you guys get into a situation where you don't know, we'll be happy to research title for you very quickly without a cost. See if that declaration of intent has been recorded in the courthouse. That's our battle. If that's recorded, we can stop this whole conversation now and just end everything. But unfortunately, the majority of the time, we don't find those in the courthouse, and we have to continue.
The Declaration of Intent is kind of what it sounds like as far as the title of the document. It's an affidavit that's signed by the owner of both the personal property, the mobile home, as well as the real property. And it identifies on there that the intent of the owner is for the manufactured home to be affixed to the land. It has been affixed to the land. It's to be a part of the real property going forward and taxed that way in the future. It also identifies the unit, so include the VIN number, make and model, and year, and then whether or not the title had been issued or not, and then just confirming that it has been detitled with the DMV if title was. But that's what's put into the public records with the Register of Deeds office, so it follows with the deed for the property.
If you guys have questions along this whole Zoom call, feel free to speak up. We love the questions. They help us learn more and help you guys learn more as well. Number three, here is the restricted covenants. Even though there's a mobile home on if there's a mobile home on a property and it's been there for a while, it doesn't mean that's not violating any restricted covenants. So that's really important to go and look into when you're either selling or buying a mobile home to make sure that is actually allowed on the property. These things can be filed years, 90, 100 years in the past, and it's never been enforced. But yes, this day and age, it's starting to be enforced a little bit more. So if you see, if you're going into a mobile home transaction, look at the restricted covenants, make sure it's allowed to be there in the first place. It's a huge issue that we're seeing these days, and we're trying to get it beat before it gets to the closing table and everything blows up at that time.
And that's just something that, over time, as people have gotten more litigious, unfortunately, there are people that, have an issue or something, and that's one of the ways they may, try to make that a bigger deal for your client, is trying to enforce that covenant that maybe the client wasn't aware of, but the when the homeowners in the area was. So it's just very important to keep that in mind, that that's something you want to make sure that the property can have a manufactured home on it. The other thing I want to point out when it comes to restrictive covenants is just because a property doesn't have an HOA, just because it doesn't show on NLS that there is an HOA, doesn't mean there's not restrictive covenants. Some a lot of restrictive covenants that we're used to are those that are filed when there's a governing HOA, the developer and the company filed, the long 50, 100-page CCRs with the Register of Deeds. But the other way is when a developer just files restrictive covenants on a property, or even a single owner who subdivides a property and places covenants on it. A lot of those, especially like the older ones, have to do with the size of the size of the home, square footage requirements, what structures can be located on the property, only one unit plus like one detached garage, not over 2 cars or whatever. And one of the other things that's common in those types of restrictions is possibly against mobile or manufactured homes. So always important to, especially if it's maybe just vacant land or whatever it may be, just pointing out and wanting to have that checked to make sure there is no restriction. The intent of the buyer is to place a mobile home on the property.
Next section, section 4. So we identify that it is a mobile home, but it's not being converted real property. What that means is it looks like it's attached as a foundation, but it hasn't. The steps haven't been taking place to get it to real property with the tax assessor's office and the register of deeds office, and that's the biggest deal that we have to we're running into, and that's the most headache you're going to get if this is the case here. It says contact the DMV. We have an account with the DMV. We are able to do a DMV search within 2 hours. But what we need is some documents, is some numbers, numbers and information from that mobile home that helps the DMV identify that within their records. This information can be found on this mobile home somewhere, including the electrical panel, the master bedroom closet, the HUD plates outside,
the cabinet below the kitchen sink,
and
then usually the storage closet, the primary storage closet. There's one inside that.
If all else fail and you can't find it in those places, you might have to crawl under the house or the mobile home. And that's that. And obviously, you could get an inspector to do that, but usually it's stamped on a chassis. Each of these have a permanent chassis that sticks with the property even after they put the foundation on. So those numbers will be stamped on there permanently, and that's what we need in order to go and to the DMV to research this title. And if it is on file, we go to the next step.
Yeah, and most often too, like if the property is being financed, if you're working with a buyer who's financing the property with the lender's going to have an appraisal, and that information will be on the appraisal. So that's where we'll request it a lot of the time. But if you're dealing with a cash buyer, or if you're trying to deal with some of these issues and make sure you've got clean title ahead of time, as a listing agent, those are the times where you're going to need to know where to find that identifying information.
Now, item 5 is, let's say we did a DMV search. and we found that there's a title of record, that doesn't mean there's a title in hand. It means that there's a title of record with the DMV, which also means we have to do a lot more legwork to get that taken care of, which is called detitling. At the end of the day, we're going to want to record or have a MVR 46G, which is basically a DMV form signed by the owner that's listed on the title and the lien holder that may be listed on the title. If the owner used lender finances to buy that mobile home, that lien holder will be listed on that title, and we have to get both of their signatures. That's sometimes it becomes a big mess because it could be 4 or 5 owners in the past. And what we're going to go over next is ways to actually try to get past that, or outcome, or the very end outcome is getting the bond on this property with the DMV. Here we go. All right, this part. All right, so this is what we need to get this to get it detitled. We typically have a cover letter. We'll take care about that. The MVGR 46, with your help in identifying the sellers and the old lenders, we have to get that signed. We'll do our best, but we may need help from your seller or any information from prior attorneys that they know of. We often get a power of attorney signed just in case we get that information after closing. We're able to sign on behalf of your seller or your buyer to get these documents completed and put into the courthouse, the registered deeds, and with the DMV. And then sometimes the registered deeds, so the DMV will like a power of attorney for their own. So usually we get a duplicate power of attorney for DMV to hold for future to refer to down the road, just in case it gets titled again. We can go back and detail it later on down the road. But these documents are mostly provided by our firm, but with the help of you guys, we'll have to get that MVR 46G signed with all the the mobile home information recorded on it.
And this is coming into effect. This is being used when there's a DMV shows that there is a title out there on the mobile home, and that title is issued in the name of the seller. So this is the process that gets followed for detitling the mobile home as part of the closing process, working on the seller and conveying title to the buyer.
This case, this scenario is a process. It takes a little bit longer than your natural closing time, but we're relying on third parties to help us, so we can't really give you a time. We always say like 60 days. I know contract is normally 45 days, but the time period will vary because there's third parties having to help us with this process.
As far as making an offer on a property, if you're working with the buyer, normally if you're thinking 30 to 45 days, when there's a mobile home involved, you want to be thinking more 45 to 60 days. And then also as a listing agent, if you're wanting to know, I mean, that's why we offer that preliminary title search that our firm can do ahead of time, so that you know where the property stands and what steps might need to be taken. Because it's always, difficult situation, now, especially as the market changes, and with rates being high, to be the seller who's causing the title issue and the delay in closing. You really don't want to be that party that's causing the delay and potentially being in breach of contract. So to go ahead and do that preliminary search and find out, hey, is there a declaration of intent of record already? We're good to go. Or is there not? And we're able to check the DMV records to find out if there's an outstanding title, and we know who to go to get that, because either it's going to be the seller or it could be, a prior owner, which that's going to be additional legwork, additional time. But knowing exactly what the status is of the mobile homes title, or it could have just been not issued. And as Thomas mentioned before, a title that was never issued is, just as good as it being in the seller's name for our purposes, because it's a pretty easy, not easy, but it takes a good bit of work to do, but it from a time perspective, it doesn't take as long to handle. But just knowing the status of the title for the manufactured home is very important on trying to frame what your time frame is going to be as far as contract close. And
if you ever order it with us, we call it a pre-listing search. So basically, it's a search before you even list the property, and we do it in hopes that we can represent your seller down the road. But if not, then we don't charge the cancellation fee or anything like that. So it's just a search that we do to help us and help you guys get to that closing table. The next number 6 is almost the best case scenario. Is when there's no title registered with the DMV, which basically means the DMV does not even have record of this mobile home listed with them at all. And we already discovered that the axles are pulled out. It's given a foundation and it has underpinning. It doesn't look like it can be moved. In that case, this is the best case scenario. We can file what they call a declaration of intent. And that is signed by the parties with all the information on that document, which the register needs. And from that day forward, that will carry, they can refinance or sell, and that will take care of them without having to go through that whole back process of having to do another DMV search or detitle process.
And the reason, and a lot of times, so there are a good amount of properties out there or units out there that title was never issued on. A lot of times, builders of mobile home would have issued a certificate of origin to the buyer rather than issuing a title, because they knew it was going to be affixed to the property right away, and basically from day one be part of the land. So that's the reason. So it is a fairly common occurrence.
In this case, we always will go back and make sure the assessor's office has that mobile home attached to the land on their documentation. What it means when they tax the property, it's building and land together instead of just the land, and then you have personal property being the mobile home. That is very important in the detailing process. But once we see there's a declaration of intent, we make sure with the tax assessor's office that is being taxed together. And in our pre-listing search, we go and look for a declaration of intent as well to make sure the process can stop there, or we have to continue with that detailing process. The next section we're going to go through, I'm going too fast, is converting it to real property. If we do find it, we don't find it, these are just scenarios we're going to go through, or we'll see during the process.
Yeah, so the first one is that certificate of title has been issued, in which case we're going to need to file the MVR 46G as part of the closing process to have the title, to have the property detitled, and then we'll also file the declaration of intent with the Register of Deeds office following that as well, to affix it to the real property. This issue can come up, sometimes what numbers 1 through 5 on there state is just talking about the identification, identifying information that needs to be included in that MVR 46G. So that's in order to properly identify the mobile home. That's part of our search process with the DMV records as well, which is how they quickly pull it.
Now, what we have in bold at the bottom, it's basically saying, please, we have to figure out how to get the owner and the lien holder to sign this MVR 46G. Reason why it's bold, because that's the hardest part of this step, and that's what we need. We pay the most attention to. How long ago has this been done? How long ago has the owner on title had the property? How many times it's been deeded over to a new person, or is it the actual current owner? That's what we have to verify, pay attention to, and depending on if there are 4 or 5 owners back or the current owner, that's how hard it's going to be or how easy it's going to be to get this document.
And a common thing that comes up when we're just talking about lien holders on title, one real common thing is that a lot of lien holders, those companies that finance just the mobile home, that purchase, a lot of those companies are out of business. Ones that were done, prior to the recession, and those companies are all now out of business. It's a little easier from our perspective in getting the document submitted that the DMV is willing to accept when a lien holder is no longer around, and the titles have been together for all this time. But when it becomes the actual owner, who's supposed to be signing the MVR 46, and it's not the current owner, then it becomes a little more problematic. And then there's additional steps that need to be taken, and kind of a package of proof kind of gathered together to submit to.
This next section here, the first part, it's when the owners, the title's in somebody else's name. In a perfect world, we have the title in our hand and we could go and have it transferred to the current owner of the property. That's a very, very perfect world. In a lot of cases, that's not going to happen because that mobile home could be 30 or 40 years old, and that title could be somewhere out there that we don't know. Usually we don't have that original title. So that perfect scenario there will be really cool if we could do that, but usually it doesn't happen. And actually Andrew has a good example of the second part of this if it goes into foreclosure.
Yeah, so recently we ended up with a couple files this way, two of them, where so the property was initially purchased in one of the cases, initially purchased by the owners from the developer, presumably just a cash purchase. They purchased the lot, and then a year or so later, purchased the home, and the home was financed with a lender at that time, and it wasn't until a couple of years later that they refinanced with a large bank, and presumably refinanced to include everything. The problem was they never actually filed the declaration of intent. They never had the unit detitled, and when they later went into foreclosure in 2007, legally that the mobile home was not affixed to the property. It was not considered real property from a title perspective. So that, of course, the person who bought it out of foreclosure sold it to our now seller. In that instance, our job, or what we're trying to do, is first of all, you look to the seller to see who closed, when and how did they close. They closed with an attorney. Was it somewhat recently, within the last 5 or 10 years? If so, hopefully they had title insurance. The best case scenario is the buyer did have title insurance. And if that, attorney's not responsive, they can always file a title claim, and usually that speeds up the process, because that attorney's going to do everything they can to resolve the issue so that the title company doesn't have to have someone else resolve it for them. Also in that scenario, as the closing attorney, you're still going to have your records for 6 years. So you would have the contact information for the sellers that you purchased it from, if the sale had been in their name. And then, but with a situation like this where it went through foreclosure, it wasn't properly handled before then. So legally the foreclosure didn't transfer the mobile home. It's about putting together basically like a package of proof to substantiate the claim that you're trying to make to the DMV, which is that this property has been, it has been taxed as real property for so many years. The mortgage that was taken out, that was eventually foreclosed on, like, it clearly, based on the property value, it clearly was a loan made on both the unit and the land. Again, the taxes have been taxed as real property all this time. It's very helpful if there's a deed of trust of record that includes a rider. I know everyone's used to seeing PUD riders as part of a closing package. A lot of times with a mobile home, there will be a manufactured home rider that's part of that deed of trust, in more kind of current loans, at least. But all that is information that can then be presented with the affidavit to the DMV, in hopes that they will use their discretion to detitle the property when that last owner who's on title cannot be located.
And that's huge. He said discretion, which also means each DMV could be different. I've been to a few DMVs who've rejected this process, but I've been to one DMV that said, if you give us 5 years of paid taxes by the current owner, then we'll continue. We'll go ahead and detitle it. We couldn't do because they just bought it in 2022. The next step will be that bonding, which basically means that DMV wants to have to add insurance, just in case something happens down the road. So the buyer will have to have, or the seller or buyer will have to pay for a bond held with the DMV in order to give that extra insurance that nothing can happen. If there's something has happened, they have that insurance to pay for that or fix that issue.
Yeah, and that bond is issued when, in the scenario when we've got someone further back in the chain of title who's the last owner, the last title owner, and they cannot be located. So like in all the scenarios, we are always trying to, we were running every possible search scenario you can find to try to locate these people. Some of them, recently found the seller in Michigan and was actually able to speak with her and get what we need, get her to join and sign the affidavit as well. But if you've exhausted all efforts on locating the title holder, then the DMV is going to require a bond in case the title owner does come back, within the next 3 years to claim interest in the property. They've got that insurance there. So that is when the person cannot be located.
So that's the end solution. If we exhausted all other efforts to get this thing detitled, would be the bond, or I guess the court order.
Court order would be the very last resort. If the DMV doesn't accept the affidavit, isn't okay with the bonding procedure, or doesn't feel it's sufficient enough proof, or some of them are just different than this. They don't deal with this issue a whole lot. It's like, even the main DMV in Raleigh, we have never had good luck trying to submit these documents to them. But you get a little further outside, and outside a big city like that, and they're a little more reasonable and use that discretion. But yeah, worst case scenario would be getting a court order, which is a much longer process.
Let you guys know we had good luck at Shelby. So we'll try that. If you guys ever have one, we'll run to Shelby for you. Try to get it done. And this is, again, we mentioned this earlier. If there's no title issued, this is our best case scenario. The DOI, Declaration of Intent, can be filed. You can record a deed of trust. That security instrument will be in place, and the Declaration of Intent will be filed at that time as well. There's NCGS statutes. That's just Andrew's way, or the attorney's way of saying that, yeah, we got an act out there or a law out there that's going to let us go ahead and do new mobile homes without having to go through the title process. Just file the Declaration of Intent along with obviously your deed of trust, your security instrument. And then that's basically the end game there. So everything. So we have this bold again, the taxes. So that should be the start and end. If it's being taxed together as real estate, that's the very best way to start it. And then we know that we don't have to convince the county that this is a mobile home anymore. But at the very end, if we have to detitle it, then we have to go back to the county to make sure they're doing that. They're actually taking that car or mobile home and that land and putting it together. So we have to verify that as well at the very end of the process. And then the restricted covenants are also bold again, because that is a big holdup if we get to the closing table and all of a sudden we find that there's a clause in those covenants that prohibits mobile homes being on the property. And we just want to make sure you guys, as agents, have that in the back of your head when you see that you're about to go into a mobile home sale or enter a buy with the mobile home.
One thing is, as he mentioned, the taxes there. I just want to point out there's some documentation, when you go to your meeting with a seller, if they present you with a copy of the title, or if they show you, if they say, oh yeah, I've been, I get a tax bill for the mobile home, and that's a different tax bill, because they will get a separate personal property tax bill, just like you do for your car each year when it is a mobile home. So those are some things to kind of keep in mind. Obviously, that has not been detitled if they've got that documentation, but that's one thing we'll need in order to work on the detitling process as part of the closing. And then another thing I want to mention, as we turn over here to title insurance requirements. So the Alta 7 is the manufactured housing unit endorsement that lenders require on the title policy. So all that work that is being done to detitle and make sure that the mobile home is part of the real property, that's done from a title insurance perspective in order for the title company to issue this endorsement to the lender, which just says, if it does get foreclosed on, it is ensured that is part of the real property. The loan does encumber it, and will be sold together into the foreclosure sale. One thing I always want to point out is that that's only a requirement when you have lender financing involved. I always recommend to people, even like cash buyers, you always want to get title insurance. And when dealing with a mobile home, you always want to make sure that the attorney is handling that detitling process. There's a lot of people, I've run into a lot of people that call me later on, especially people who were buying kind of during the COVID craze, and you couldn't really do your due diligence as well as you should. Or you find out there's this issue. It's like, oh, they can't find the title, but we don't have time. They're going to go take another offer, or they don't care if we walk away. There's people lining up to buy it, and they never dealt with this issue, and they think we'll deal with it later. Well, just everything becomes harder to deal with as time goes on. So I always recommend always dealing with the detitling process, even if there's not a loan on there requiring it. Do it as the buyer and as the agent for the buyer to make sure that's getting done properly, and they're not running into issues down the road when they need to take a loan out against the property, or they need to sell the property, and aren't dealing with that headache then.
Yeah, the whole process for detitling is for the lender to get a little bit of insurance that the owner can't go. It's that mobile home up to a truck and pull it off. Well, they're appraising that property together with the land. And if we once the Alta 7's issued, they actually have the insurance behind the title company that says, all right, if that wasn't done correctly, and they pulled that mobile home away, you still have to make us whole. And obviously that's happened before, because we're talking about this right now. So at the end of the day, we just gotta make sure we look at it before we go into listing a property. Handle it or ask about it when you're a buyer to purchasing a mobile home property. And if you have any questions, please ask the attorney who's closing the loan, or ask us. Even if we're not closing the loan or being involved with it, we'll 100% help you guys out and answer any questions you have. So it is a headache, and it will be a headache for you down the road if something goes wrong, because they always look to the agent first and not to anyone else who was involved in the process. You guys are welcome to ask any questions. Hopefully you can unmute yourself. If not, you could ask us to unmute you. Don't be scared.
So I have a question that comes up sometimes. It's on modulars though.
Okay.
So you see on frame and off frame in the description. So how can we explain the difference to people when they ask?
Well, what we understand modular on frame, off frame, if it's a modular, like, so distinguish on frame and off frame. I mean, are they label it incorrectly, you think? Because usually, I mean, I see that too. But technically a modular shouldn't have a frame at all. So
Right. Which that got me thinking when you were in the beginning, when you were talking about the difference between the modular and the manufactured home, which, we all think, okay, we understand that. But when you look in the MLS, that's what you'll see: modular on frame or modular off frame.
Well, I would think being on frame or off frame, it's not on chassis. You know what I mean? Like a chassis is like a two big long metal pieces of T-bar that you can attach axles to. But what we'll do, I will definitely verify that, like get more, dig down deeper in that. I just don't want to answer it wrong, but we always see mobile homes with having the chassis. And a frame, to me, if you have a frame, like when you frame a house, they call it a frame. So that would still classify as a modular, being treated the same as a stick-built home. But do not let us let me get a clarified answer for you for that, because I've had to answer the question before, and I always refer to not being a frame, it's a chassis. It has to have a chassis to be a manufacturer or mobile home. And on frame, off frame could be just different frames, like houses being framed out, or parts of the house being framed and put together. So let's say you have 5 pieces of a modular home put together, but they all have frames. You put them all together, and then they build an additional part of that house on site, or an additional room on site. But I would definitely, actually, my father built modular homes. I'll definitely get that great answer for you. I just don't want to give you the incorrect answer. But right now, I think when they say on frame and off frame, is if it came in own frame, as in I came in a framed portion or part of that house, or was it built after the house was after the modular home was built? Was that also built attached to it off frame? But I'll give you that clear answer within the next hour.
Oh, okay. That'd be great.
That's a great question, though. Too bad I didn't have a good answer.
Hey, Melissa,
Yes.
this is Lynette. I just Googled it.
Oh, okay.
All frame modular homes have no steel frame underneath, where an own frame modular home has a steel frame underneath.
Steel frame, yeah.
And the
Steel
floor,
frame.
the floor joists are different too. Like an all frame has 2x10 foot floor joist. And where the on frame with the steel has 2x6 or 2x8 floor joist.
Okay.
So
No, it describes the way it's built.
yeah, basically it just describes the way it's built.
Yeah, so just remember chassis.
There won't be HUD plates on
Yeah,
But
there's a
I've been told by a modular company that the off-frame modulars are actually worth more money than the on-frame modulars.
Okay.
I don't know why, but that's what I was told.
Right. Okay.
Well, thank you very much, Lynette.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely.
Anybody else?
Nobody?
So what we'll do, we have this in a more of a condensed format, what we just went through. Not condensed, but more not slideshow formatted. We'll send that to your whole to the whole crew. We also have a flow chart. It's a colorful flow chart that has like dead ends. If you get to this, do this, if you get to that, do that, which is very helpful to show your clients that all right, this is what we have to deal with if you have a mobile home. But yeah, I'll send it to you, Melissa. The mobile home information we have, and you can disperse it however you like. But it's very helpful, and hopefully down the road it'll help you guys decide, or help your buyers decide if they want to buy or sell, or you want to sell, and maybe use us. That'll be awesome.
Yeah, we'd appreciate that. That'd be real helpful.
Not a problem. Well, if you guys don't have any more questions, you can always email me if you have one down the road, or just think of one after this Zoom call. Just let us know. We'll be happy to help. Again, if you need that pre-listing search, even though the buyer's not going to use us, we'll still help you guys, help your sellers get the clear answer that they need in order to get that thing listed. All right.
Thank you. We appreciate your time and information for sure.
Not a problem. You guys take care. Have a great Wednesday.
You too. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
bye-bye.
you.
Bye, guys.